Xilonen Guide in Razor Language. Xilonen is a Geo support. She can shred enemy resistances with her skill, and buff their damage with her artifact set. She is basically Geo Kazuha, but reversed. By using her skill, she will enter the Nightsoul Blessing state and create those samples on her left side. Each sample will get converted to the element of each teammate, but only the elements that can react with Geo. Pyro, Electro, Cryo, and Hydro, while the remaining will be left as Geo samples. To activate their resistance shred though, we need her to max out her Nightsoul points first, and we can do that by simply hitting 2 normal attacks. Keep in mind though, that based on her first passive, we can only max out her points if at least 2 samples have been converted, otherwise, she will simply get 30% more damage on her normal and plunging attacks. This basically means she can perform as a support only on teams with at least 2 crystallizable elements, and as a on-field DPS if played in Mono Geo, since the Geo samples will stay active as long as she remains on the field, even without maxing out the points. But the dual gameplay doesn't end here. Even her burst has 2 completely different uses based on her team. If she has at least 2 samples of elements different than Geo, when using her burst she will deal an AoE Geo damage and periodically heal the active character for 12 seconds, otherwise, with 2 or more Geo samples, she will just deal 2 more burst hits, for a total of 3. As for the second passive, just don't bother too much about it, it's simply a free 20% defense. Moving on with her build, I'll only cover her support build, since that's her main purpose. If you really want to play her on field, you can basically build her like Shiori, with the only difference being Obsidian Codex as her artifact set. Starting with her weapons, there isn't much to say here. If you don't have her signature, just go with Favonius. Freedom Sworn is also good if the main DPS she is supporting makes use of the passive buffs to attack, normal, charged, and plunging attacks. The M substat is useless on her, but it's not a big deal since she only needs defense for her healing scaling, and her resistance shred is only dependent on her skill talent level. If you have none of the above, then just go with the Natlan Craftable. Now for the artifact set, it's the hero set. Using anything else is basically trolling. Main stats are energy or defense sands, defense goblet, and defense or healing bonus circlet, or even crit rate if playing with Favonius sword. Substats are even more defense, energy, and crit rate if Favonius. As I already said, she wants defense because of her healing scaling on it, but if you also have her signature weapon, it is needed to max out the passive buff too, with the cap being 25.6% at 3200 defense. Her energy requirements are not that high, thanks to the hero set and her particle generation, so you'll be fine with around 140%, basically just Favonius sword, energy sands, or a lot of energy substats. Moving on to her constellations, the early ones are quite interesting. C1 gives resistance to interruption, which is not bad for characters like C0 Nouvelette, and basically more skating time as a quality of life in the open world. C2 gives different buffs based on the elements of the characters in the team. The best ones are Geo and Cryo, which offer 50% damage for the Geo, and 60% crit damage for the Cryo. For example, on a Melt Risley team, she will give 60% crit damage to him, and 45% attack to Shangling and Bennett, and also 50% damage for herself, but it's irrelevant since she does little damage. Not only that, but the Geo sample will always remain active, which means she can also buff off field on a mono or triple Geo team now. With C4, after using her skill, she will buff all party members normal, charged, and plunging attacks based on 65% of her defense, up to 6 hits or until the 15 seconds duration ends. If there are multiple enemies, each one of them will consume 1 hit, and every character is counted independently, so you can technically use the 6 hits on each character. Lastly, C6 buffs her own normal and plunging attacks by 300% of her defense for 5 seconds, on which her Nightsoul points, phlogiston, and stamina won't be consumed, and she will also heal all the team periodically. She can get this buff once every 15 seconds. Except for C6, which opens up a real possibility to play her as a main DPS. All the others are nice supporting upgrades, especially C1 for the resistance to interruption. But don't feel the need to get them, especially C2, which I feel is a bit overrated by the community. I mean, it's not bad, especially for Geo and Cryo, but she is already a top-tier character at C0. Talent priority is skill then burst. Since her resistance shred is completely dependent on her skill level, it's extremely important to level that up. Normal attacks only matter if you want to play her on field, otherwise, you can leave them at level 1. Now for her teams, well, basically all the teams Kazuha can already support, plus the Geo ones. Navia, Neuvillette, Mualani, Wriothesley, Arlecchino, and many other pet characters will benefit from her in one way or another. Navia too wants 2 pet characters in the team, so that's a match made in heaven, with Wriothesley being Cryo. It makes it hard to double swirl with Kazuha in melt teams, so she is more comfortable to play with that. And since Neuvillette and Mualani are HP scalers, and there is a lack of HP supports unlike the attack ones, she is one of the few options for them, just like Kazuha. Ido too can play with her, even though you'll have to sacrifice the triple Geo comp with Guru and use other Pek supports like Farina and Bennett, unless you have C2 Shilonen of course, in that case, you can keep the triple Geo. All in all, she is absolutely busted. If she's not a must-pull, I don't know who is. And that's it for this guide. Hope it was helpful, and if so, leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching.